Welcome back to the Vectra podcast channel. I'm Zoe. I'm here with Dale from the technical marketing team. We're going to be talking about integrating SOARs in the Vectra AI platform. But first, Dale, why don't you do a quick introduction of yourself?
Yeah, of course. Hi, Zoe. Thank you so much for having me today. My name's Dale O Grady. I'm with the TME, technical marketing team within Vectra, and I'm a principal engineer that focuses on third-party integrations and really how we use the vector signal, essentially outside of the platform itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to keep this short and sweet here. We're just going to talk through the SOAR integrations in a three-part, three questions rapid fire series. So first question for you, Dale. What are these SOAR integrations in the Respond UX? What are we looking at?
Yeah, sure, Zoe. We're going to go through, some of these essentially if we, start at the highest level, the SOAR itself, security orchestration, automation, and response. It's a set of tools that are going to help organizations really manage and respond to threats. So they're all a little different in their functionality, but fundamentally they're all going to include some type of let's say threat intelligence, corroboration. They're going to incident management or case management, of course, as well as automation and putting together an automation framework that allows the SOAR tool to communicate with that third party or the end platform. And really, there's a lot of value in the automation aspect of it. It's automation that sort of puts everything together.
Yeah,
So, those customers that are actually, implementing and utilizing a SOAR, the value they get are in the areas of things like efficiency. Efficiency is when
yeah.
dealing with, repetitive tasks.
Hmm.
There's a lot of repetitive tasks, and so obviously the staff is better suited to work on complex issues rather than repetitive issues. So the SOAR is going to help
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah.
So it's going to help with speed. So obviously, when you start automating some of these things, you're going to reduce the time, between that detection and resolution. So really increasing the speed, the velocity, consistency. Of course, humans make errors. So when we can
Hmm.
automate, make it predictive, we're going to minimize that errors, and people get tired as well. So really improve on consistency. Scalability, what can I say? The threat service continues to expand and expand, certainly much greater and faster than the ability for people to hire and solve the problem with
Absolutely.
humans.
Yeah.
So, the SOAR is really going to help you scale that coverage in the environment. And then, of course, integration. Integration itself is really, when you're using a SOAR, typically you're going to have multiple products in your
Yep.
your layered defense stack. So it's going to help you bring those multiple products together. So Vectra, we certainly play in the game of integrating with various SOARs. As I mentioned, each SOAR has, varying degrees of capabilities. But the list here on the screen gives you an example of some of them that we do integrate. It's not the exhaustive list, but things
Mhm.
like, Palo Alto Cortex X SOAR. You may have remember the previous name of Demisto, Splunk
Mhm.
SOAR, previously known as Phantom. You've got your group, your Chronicle source, Simplify. ServiceNow has their security orchestration or security incident response.
Mhm.
Swim Lane. There's others as well. There's Microsoft Logic Apps. There's open source tools. There's N8N, and fundamentally these all have similar capabilities.
Mhm.
And at the same time, our level of integration with each of those is going to vary slightly as well. So, and that varies from our platforms, our quadrant experience and
Right,
our
right.
respond experience. And really, the rule of thumb is that the respond experience in those integrations are providing even more functionality above the quadrant ones, and are being very, very user driven. When we're looking
Hmm.
at Cortex XOR and Splunk SOAR and ServiceNow,
Yeah.
it's very user or operator focused.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is really important here because there's never one platform, one tool that a security analyst or any security professional can use to cover everything. It's the really important part about security is that the integrations, that's what makes security works, right, Dale?
It is what makes security works. There's no one and done. There's no
Mhm.
single tool that's going to take care of everything. So, and at the same time, you can't have a million tools that don't communicate with each other,
Yeah.
because then that just becomes a human problem. So,
Yeah,
it's really about putting, the best of all the tools together. And a SOAR is one of the ways to do that.
absolutely. So my next question to you is how these integrations actually work in the Respond UX. We're talking a little bit more technical here.
Yeah, so if we look at it from the Vectra perspective and the Respond UX perspective, there can be different ways for SOARs in general to work, but for the most part, the SOAR itself is going to be pulling or requesting the data. And in
Hmm.
the vector world, that's done by using the RESTful API. So the SOAR runs the application that, on a polling interval, might be every minute, might be every 5, 10 minutes. It's going to communicate with the vector platform, making these REST API queries that's going to essentially
Hmm.
pull back data. The base data, the fundamental data that we want to provide to a SOAR is information around the entities. So those
Hmm.
entities are things like accounts and hosts
Hmm.
as well as their detections that are
Hmm.
associated with them. And
Hmm.
then there's other sets of data in here as well, but they fundamentally at some point in time they all pertain to an entity, things like groups and assignments and things like that.
Yeah.
But essentially, what we want to do is we want to query the system. We want to get information on those entities so that the operator can define the conditions for creating an incident. And in the
Hmm.
vector world, we've gone to great pains to using our attack signal intelligence to, essentially prioritize an entity. We've already attributed the detections to it. We've already scored it. We already have information around things, velocity and urgency score. So best
Hmm.
practice and, kind of out of the box for our SOAR integrations, the ability to create an incident that when Vectra deems a host or an entity, a host or an account, is in the high urgency or is prioritized to create an incident. And then that way you can work off of those incident. The operator is free to make modifications to it, create incidents
Hmm.
using different criteria. But essentially, we want to do two things. We want to create the incident when the conditions are met, and Vectra takes great strains in making sure that we update incidents. Things aren't just very static.
Hmm.
Threats evolve, new detections
Right.
come in, there's changes to entities, and the worst thing you can do to a SOC is have these duplicate
Oh yeah.
incidents.
Yeah.
So we go out of our way to make sure that we're updating our incidents, we're tracking what is live and moving over time, and then from that part, the operator, once they have their incident, they can work on their outcomes. And the outcomes, there's some examples here. So you might, what I call an outcome is something more higher level, right? As opposed to an
Hmm.
action. An action is
Hmm.
a very finite task. Add a tag is an action. Assignment can deal with things like who are you going to assign it to? Is it already assigned? Does the assignment need to be updated? So that's an outcome. We want to be able to assign. We want to be able to, respond. Response can take so many different paths. Response can be an investigation. Response can be an active blocking and working with other tools. Enriching, which we'll sort of go through when we go through some of the other use cases. But you want to decorate or enrich some of these incidents, triage in the matter of like authorizing behaviors and acknowledging, and of course investigation, which is obviously a very large part of what the analyst is going to do once an incident is created. So we pull in the data, we keep the incidents up to date at all times, keep them relevant, and then allow the operator to move into and define the outcomes that they want to work on.
Gotcha, gotcha. So essentially, Vectra is providing like the puzzle pieces that the analyst or the SOC professional needs to do X, Y, and Z, right? We're giving them accounts, host detections within an entity, which creates an incident, which they can do something about, right?
Correct. We're doing that and giving a starting point, right? Because the
Yeah.
starting point is now dealing with different maturity levels of security operations,
Gotcha,
right?
gotcha.
So,
Mhm.
we don't want to just give them a bunch of data and say, hey, you're on your own, figure it all out. We want to give them a starting point. So the starting point is
Mm,
that data, the
yep.
incident, a way to respond, and then from there, as the environment becomes more mature and their SOC maturity, they can further extend the right side of this and their outcomes to build additional
Mm,
playbooks to
gotcha.
further automate things like investigate, which we got one little button in here, but that could be
Mhm.
several steps. So we want
Right.
to make sure they at least have a starting point to work from.
Yeah.
And then from there, based on your maturity level, you can expand upon that.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. Awesome. So now we're going to talk about what these integrations actually mean for security teams. And I know you already touched on a lot of points here, but I think that we have lots of use cases for our SOAR integrations. You want to talk through it?
Yeah, let's double click on some of these because, like I said, we want to take a user first perspective, right? There's one thing of here's data and here's individual commands, but unless you start putting them together into actual usable use cases, they may not provide the value that you're looking for. So one of the things that is unique to Vectra integrations is we try to take this overall workflow approach or a playbook approach to it. So yes, of course, we need to build all the building blocks. We need to make sure that we have the ability to ingest data, poll, scheduling, individual commands. But then we start putting them together into these use cases, playbooks, workflows, whatever the SOAR wants to call them as far as their terminology. But the first one, and I think the most important one, is entity-based incidents. Vector is very unique here. In the old way of doing things, we'll call it, was a very detection-centric world. A
Yep.
detection is an alert. Every alert causes an incident, and then the SOC has to go and really investigate myopically. And that's the problem. You're looking at just a very small piece of the puzzle, and you're responding to individual detections which, certainly a SOAR is going to help put other things together, but there's a lot of effort that's involved in that. So you end up
Yeah.
spending, you know, could be an excessive amount of time working on an individual detection, but could also be working on the wrong thing, right? Based off of overall, risk to the environment. So what we do is we attach detections to entities and we create incidents based off of entities. And what does that mean in the real world? In the real world, this on average is about a 75% reduction in the number of incidents. So now you're looking at an entity holistically. You
Hmm.
know that it's the most important thing to work on. You
Yep.
have all of the evidence of the individual pieces, the individual detections that are firing as part of that entity. So you know that you're working on the right thing at the right time and that you're
Hmm.
not wasting your time and you're doing it most efficiently. That, like anything else, if you get off on the right foot, strong footing, you're in a better position from there. And so, but where do we go from there? And there are things that, that's just the first step in, identifying that there is something here of interest that needs to be worked on. We do assignment synchronization. An assignment's very important. So all tools have some kind of assignment. You're putting an owner on it. You're basically tasking somebody to work on something. And what ends up happening, especially when you have multiple tools, if you don't synchronize these things and people enter the tools from different places, let's say that there's a local user in Vectra looking
Hmm.
at something and they don't know that there's an incident created in the SOAR. They don't know who's working on it. So the first thing
Yeah.
we want to do is we want to synchronize that assignment. So if you assign in the
Hmm.
SOAR, have it assign in Vectra. And then that way
Absolutely.
that helps with all kinds of things. It helps with your metrics, but it also helps with any local user looking at the tool.
Such a small
Conversely,
thing, but it's important, right,
it's
Dale?
it's it's huge because you're not going to get any metrics without that level of assignment.
Yeah.
Because how do you actually score anything mean time? You can have your mean time to detect, your mean time to
Yeah.
prioritize, but then mean time to assign, to
Hmm.
resolve, to respond unless you assign, you can't measure any of that
Yeah.
stuff. So it's important that it's done so that you can measure it. But also for this next one, for incident resolution. Now, people don't pay enough attention to this, and what ends up happening is, certainly the incident is created, a lot of work is done by the analyst. The analyst does their investigation and they determine how best to respond and how to resolve the incident. And when they resolve the incident, a lot of tools will end at the SOAR. And they'll say, okay, I'm closing it. I'm
Oh.
closing in the SOAR and I'm all done. And then they're worried, they wonder why. Well, why am I getting duplicate incidents? Why is there another incident coming back? Well,
Mm.
you still have your detection tool, in our case, the Vector platform. And if it's not
Mhm.
closed on the Vector platform or it's not taken care of,
Mm.
they still exist. So they're just
Right.
going to keep coming back. And now that's doing a disservice. That's actually, it's going against the old efficiency within the SOC. So we want to make sure that we're synchronizing resolution as well and doing it in a manner where you can resolve from the SOAR tool
Mhm.
without needing to go into Vectra, without needing to swap between
Right.
screens and do all this
Yeah.
stuff and keep everything in check. So
Mhm.
incident resolution is something that we pay a lot of attention to as well. and
Mhm.
really helps with the overall use cases as you put multiple one-touch operations together, which is the
There
next
it
one.
is. Yeah, one touch
And
operations. Yep.
one-touch operations, those are actions, right? And
Hmm.
there's valid reasons to do it, but things as simple as I want to add a tag to an entity in Vectra, or I want to add a tag to several detections in Vectra because I need to, continue my investigation later, and I want to be able to report and search on these things to say these are all within the same realm of investigation without needing to pivot into another platform, be able to initiate those types of one-touch operations or actions from within the SOAR itself is where we're adding our fundamental actions, add notes, add tags, add to groups, things like that.
Yeah.
And then that way they can be used individually or further built into larger, more robust playbooks by the customer.
Hmm. Hmm.
Another use case is decoration, we call it. And I gave the example earlier with the assignment, and decoration is goes beyond assignment, and it includes things. It could be something as simple as this incident has been created in the SOAR tool. Here's the incident number, and here's the link. So now when somebody is on the local platform, they see that this is being addressed, that it's not just sitting there. Oh, and by the way, the right way to manage this is manage it through the SOAR tool, manage it through the incident management of that SOAR tool,
Hmm.
and knowing that it is being taken care of, right? There's been
Gotcha.
countless
Yeah.
times analysts end up working on the same thing
Mm,
when that might not be the best approach.
right.
And then let's close things off with my personal favorite, authorizing behavior. And the reason this is my personal favorite is because when you look at the grand scheme of things and you look at, just SOCs in general, incidents, alerts to resolution, yes, there are true positives. There's absolutely true positives, but the lion's share of dealing with resolution is ultimately going to be acknowledge or authorizing behavior. You have to look at it, you have to verify, you have to vet, you have to confirm, and then the majority of time it's, oh, under this circumstance, this is a behavior that we are going to allow. And most tools will just say acknowledge.
Hmm.
And that doesn't do justice because what that means is, well, you're just going to have to do it again down the road. It might be the next day, might be the
Ah,
next week. If it's the
yeah,
next
yeah.
day, it's
Right.
easy because you remember. If it's the
Right.
next week, you're not going to remember. And then you do your investigation all over again. Ah, I knew that was familiar. And then you end up wasting a lot of time. So we've got tools, we got this integration in place that allows you to authorize these behaviors. Vextra has a mechanism
Hmm.
called triage. And
Yep.
triage is exactly that, a granular way to say, under these conditions, we want to authorize this behavior. Don't fire a detection. This is authorized behavior. The behavior is occurring, but we're going to allow it. We don't want to be alerted upon it. And
Hmm.
then that way we can go ahead and we can allow the SOC user, as they complete their investigation, and if one of their actions is to authorize the behavior, authorize it right from the SOAR, and then don't deal with that problem again tomorrow, the next day, or the day after. Those are just some of the use cases. There's a million use cases that you can do
Yeah,
with a SOAR, but I hope you can get an idea here on what we're trying to do to put these into more of a user-centric view of getting the
absolutely.
most value out of the SOAR and how best to use the Vectra platform.
Absolutely. And that's why we have SOAR integrations in general. It's for the users. It's just to make security easier for the users, right, Dale?
This is a human problem.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, all the AI in the world, all the LLMs in the
Mm.
world, all the stuff, fundamentally, at the end of the day, it's the human that needs to make the final decision, and
Right.
how we can help them get there faster with more
Hmm.
confidence
Yep.
is ultimately going to benefit everyone. Yeah.
Absolutely. All righty. Well, thanks, Dale, so much for talking us through our SOAR integrations. I think that was a very, very insightful topic to dive into. And if you guys haven't checked us out already, we are on YouTube. We're also on Spotify. We have an entire playlist of threat briefings, discussions like this with Dale, our platform enhancements. Just please check us out. We have some great information on there. And Dale, once again, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next time. All right.
All right. Thank you, Zoe. Be safe, everyone.
All right. Bye.